We have already seen that on all Khandapakshavadins' view, a person understands the meaning of a sentence when she understands the connection which obtains among the meanings of the subsentential expressions constituting the sentence. I have also remarked that this response of the Khandapakshavadins to the first question, namely what do we understand when we understand the meaning of a sentence, is only a preliminary answer. Every system has its own specific and more detailed answer to this first question. That is, every system needs to specify the entity which a person understands when she understands the meaning of a sentence. The eminent Prabhakara philosopher Shalikonath Mishra, in his treatise Prakarana Panchika, mentions two kinds of theories of sentence meaning. He designates these two kinds of theories as Karya Vakarthavada and Bhavana Vakyarthavada. Shalikonath Mishra mentions these two kinds of theories in the chapter Vakyartha Matrika of his Prakarana Panchika. The chapter Vakyartha Matrika has two sections. Shalikonath Mishra makes this observation in the first section of Vakyartha Matrika. There he observes that the Vyakarana theory of sentence meaning and the Prabhakara theory of sentence meaning fall within Karya Vakarthavada, whereas the Bhatta Mimamsa theory of sentence meaning is designated by the term Bhavana Vakyarthavada. On the grammarian's view, the meaning of a sentence is an action, is a kriya, which is conveyed by the dhatu or the root, which constitutes the principal verb of the sentence. So the grammarians subscribe to Kriya Vakyarthavada, which is also a form of Karya Vakarthavada. The Prabhakara Mimamsakas believe that the meaning of a sentence is conveyed by the ling case ending. That is why the Prabhakara philosophers have identified a sentence with the Akhyata Shabda, where the term Akhyata means the case endings. Here, the ling case ending conveys the main meaning of the sentence, and this meaning of the sentence is a karya known as apurva. This apurva is the result of an action, and this result in course of time brings about an effect which also is a consequence of the action. For instance, let us suppose that a person performs a Vedic rite. This Vedic rite produces a property which resides in the soul of the agent who has performed this Vedic rite. So this property, which is also known as apurva, is a result of the performance of that Vedic rite. Now this property, which resides in the soul of the agent, in course of time brings about certain effects. For instance, some other worldly pleasure, say heavenly bliss or heavenly pleasure. Now heavenly pleasure is the effect of the apurva, which in turn is produced by the performance of the Vedic rite. So this apurva is an intermediate effect or avantaro or madhyavarti vyaparo of the Vedic rite. This avantaro or madhyavarti vyaparo is produced by the Vedic rite, and this vyaparo in turn gives rise to some effect which also is a result of this Vedic rite. As we all know that a vyaparo or this kind of an intermediate effect is defined by the Naiyayikas as tadjanvatve sati tadjanya janakatvam vyaparatvam. That is, a vyaparo is an effect which is brought about by a cause, and this effect in due course or eventually gives rise to some effect which is also a result of the original cause. So this vyaparo is an intermediate effect which is caused by the original cause and which gives rise in due course to some effect which is also caused by the original cause. An apurva also is an intermediate vyaparo or intermediate effect of this kind. This intermediate effect is admitted by the Prabhakara Mimamsakas to explain the causal connection between a Vedic rite and the remote effect of that Vedic rite. These Vedic rites are performed with the hope of attaining certain pleasures, say some other worldly pleasure or heavenly pleasure. There are of course Vedic rites which can bring about effects in this life also, but most of the Vedic rites are performed with the desire of attaining some other worldly pleasure. But we know that a cause is that which is an immediate, invariable, unconditional antecedent of an effect. This is the narrow definition of a cause. Ananyatha siddhatve sati karyo niyato purvavritti karanam. So the karana must exist immediately before the occurrence of the effect. The cause must immediately precede the effect, otherwise the cause cannot bring about the effect. But the Vedic rites, which are supposed to bring about the other worldly pleasures, do not immediately precede those other worldly pleasures. There is a long temporal gap between the performance of these Vedic rites and the results which these Vedic rites are supposed to bring about. Now, how can these rites bring about certain effects in some distant future? To answer this question, the Mimamsakas admit certain effects which the performance of these rites produce immediately, and these intermediate effects reside in the soul of the performer, in the Atman of the performer, and these intermediate effects in turn produce the otherworldly effects after a long temporal gap. This intermediate effect is a dispositional property, is a kind of sanskara which resides in the soul of the performer, and it is called apurva by the Prabhakara Mimamsakas. The link ascending of a Vedic injunction conveys this apurva, and it is this link ascending which motivates a person to perform a Vedic rite by conveying this apurva. That is, the link ascending conveys that if an entitled person or an adhikari purusha performs this rite or this ritual, then he or she will come to possess this apurva, which in turn will give rise to certain pleasures after a long time gap, which pleasure is desired by the agent. Please note that the agent would not have performed this Vedic rite if he had not desired this effect. A person would not have performed a rite that produces swarga or heavenly bliss unless that person desired swarga. If I do not desire swarga, I would not perform that Vedic rite. So, a Vedic injunction or an imperative statement, any imperative statement for that matter, motivates a person to perform certain actions through this link ascending by conveying that this action will bring about an intermediate effect. That intermediate effect in due course or in the long run will bring about the desired goal or the goal which is desired by the agent. Thus, what actually the person understands when she understands the meaning of an imperative statement is an apurva. This apurva is conveyed not by the link ascending alone, but by the link ascending along with the verbal root and along with all other karakas, all other grammatical cases which are linked with that finite verb. Thus we see that on the Prabhakara view, this link ascending or akhyata is the principal subject or the mukhya visheshya of a sentence, and this mukhya visheshya along with the verbal root and the other components of the sentence conveys this apurva, which actually is the meaning of an imperative sentence. So no part of a sentence alone is competent to convey the meaning of the sentence. Every part of the sentence conveys its own meaning as connected with the meanings of the other components of the sentence. That is why the Prabhakara philosopher said that a sentential component or the constituent of a sentence always conveys a connected meaning, an onnita artha, an artha which is related to or which is connected with the meanings of the other expressions constituting the sentence. So the sentence is the primary vehicle of meaning. The sentence is the primary unit which can convey a complete meaning. That is why the Prabhakara theory of sentence meaning is known as denoting the related or Annita Vidhano Vado.